Welcome back to the Untriggered Parenting Podcast with me, Paula Sampson Lawrence. On today's show, my guest is Dr Jemma. Dr Jemma empowers mums to shift out of survival mode and to rediscover their purpose and identity beyond motherhood. Let's dive in. Welcome, Dr Jemma, to the show. Welcome to the podcast. Really lovely to see you and to meet you. So I would love for you to introduce yourself to the listeners and tell them all about you.
Thank you for having me. Well, I am an empowerment coach for mums and a mentor, really helping them to break free from survival mode so they can reconnect with their identity and their purpose and their passions beyond motherhood, so they can step into clarity, confidence and joy.
Oh, I love that, because do you know what? It's so easy to sort of lose yourself, and I think society is okay with you losing yourself, because it's like, well, you've got a kid now, so that kid is number one, and whatever you were doing before, well, that's sort of on the back burner now. And you know, like I read in your bio, it causes a lot of mums to live in survival mode. So can you talk a little bit more about what that looks like and what that is and how that shows up for mums?
Sure, because I think survival mode is probably not a word that everyone relates to, but actually they're going through it.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about chronic survival mode. A lot of the ones that I work with are suffering with chronic survival mode, not just having a bad day or a bad moment, but really feeling depleted, low on energy, feeling resentful, feeling like there's feeling unfulfilled, feeling like they're not connected to themselves. They don't know who they are anymore since becoming a mum. There's no room for their needs and their aspirations and dreams, and really just feeling lost in the whirlwind of motherhood and not sure how to get out of it. Like they just don't know what direction to turn in, and they feel like this is my life, and feeling really unhappy. And it's so heartbreaking because motherhood, a lot of people can find it disempowering because of that survival mode. However, motherhood can be so empowering. It can be, you learn so much about yourself, you learn a lot of new skills, you learn about life, you learn so much. And yes, you do become a new version of yourself without a doubt, but it's about accepting and embracing that new version of you and finding out what she's about, what makes her thrive, and looking at how you can make her fit into your journey of motherhood so she thrives and she's living as the most vibrant version of herself, rather than in this kind of black, grey, blackened, white life. We want full color. That's what we're here to do. And you can do that when you're a mum. It's totally possible.
Absolutely. And I think there's sort of, I don't want to generalize, but there's sort of two camps. There is the ones who go, I'm not accepting this. This doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right. I'm going to seek out information, how I can sort of change the dynamic of my life. And then you've got those who sort of do accept it and don't see anything, a way out, and they don't see anything different. So they're sort of accepted it like that. So what do you think causes that? What is the barrier to them going, I don't have to accept this?
I think if that is your life and you're happy with it and you're thriving in that space, good for you. Like stay as you are, that's fine. But if you've got an inkling that actually I want more, if you're finding motherhood monotonous, if it's unfulfilling, if you're aspiring for more and you're not sure how to get there, then then go for it and start taking those steps to get you out of that rut. A lot of mums do feel stuck, but I think if you aren't kind of recognizing or resonating with those feelings of survival mode, and you're happy, then fine. That's perfectly, there's nothing wrong with that life if that's the life that you're supposed to be living.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. So let's talk some sort of strategies to get out of survival mode. What can we start doing on a day-to-day basis that can shift us into more of a mode of living life in full colour?
I think for me, it's really getting to know yourself again. So tapping into those joyful moments, and what brought you joy before you became a mum might be completely different now
Yeah.
that you are a mum. But just finding 5-10 minutes for yourself each day, and if you think about that, 10 minutes in 24 hours just for you,
Mm.
that sounds quite achievable. Just a 10-minute block, and it can be doing anything that brings you joy, such as listening to music or going for a walk or pottering in the garden, or I don't know, doing something creative, um, making a playlist, reading a chapter
Mm.
of a book. I mean, some mums don't, they just don't have the time, or feel like they don't have the time
Yeah.
to actually pick up a book and read something. Maybe it's journaling, maybe it's meditating. And actually, before doing all of that, I would really focus on the basics. So
Mm.
making sure that you're hydrated, making sure you're nourishing yourself with food, making sure that you're taking a shower, making sure that you're getting good quality sleep, well, as much as you can, because I know with mums that can be quite a
Sleep.
controversial topic. Your sleep,
Oh.
making sure you're going to the toilet when you need to go. Get
Hmm.
those basics sorted first, then start building up the kind of, if you want to do meditation or journaling,
Yeah.
affirmation, that kind of thing. So get those basics done first, because as a time poor mum, you still deserve to show up for yourself. And those things that I've listed there are very basic ways that you are able to do that. And yeah, they're not very insta sexy, but
Yeah.
they are still you showing up for yourself. And even for me, if I've got a busy day, I don't have time to exercise or journal or read or whatever.
Mm.
I will go back to those basic things, because
Yeah.
it is me still showing up for myself. It is still me reminding myself that I deserve
Mm.
the same care and love and attention that I give out so freely to the other people in my life.
Absolutely. I think we sort of need to shift away from this idea of self-care being something big that you need to go and do and spend money on and book a spa day and all that kind of stuff, which is, great if you can
Mm-hmm.
get a massage. I would love that. But, it's more building it into your everyday routine, so that I always say, you don't want to deplete yourself all the
Mm-hmm.
time to zero and then have to work to build yourself up. You've got to maintain a certain level throughout the whole sort of week. And that comes by taking little bits of time, chunks of time for yourself. Because what tends to happen, I've done it too, and I still do sometimes. I've got to remind myself, I go down to zero, and then it's like, oh, now I've got to rest to build up, and then down to zero again. And it's about balance, I think. I wanted to talk more about identity.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've covered sort of self-care, but for the mum who's lost herself, because I remember when I first had my eldest, and I remember not listening to the music that I liked for
Mm-hmm.
about 2 years. And then I thought to myself, what, why?
Yeah.
Why have you done that? Why have you just, subjected yourself to Peppa Pig and all that? As if I couldn't just play my own music when he was, I don't know why I did that to myself. And looking back, I was like, that just makes no sense.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like I had accepted that I was going to put what I liked in the back burner. So how can a mum regain her identity and her purpose? Because it's great being mothers. Obviously, we love our children, we love
Yeah.
motherhood, but we're three-dimensional. There is more to us than that. So how do we go back to reclaiming who we were?
It's funny that you mentioned music. So I just had a client who loves music but
Mm,
stopped playing her favorite music. It just kind of fell to the wayside, and she
yeah,
started to pick up that her music again, and she feels so
yeah,
joyous when, I mean, she might be folding laundry or she might be looking after the kids whilst the music's on, but it's just bringing her so much joy and keeping her spirits up, and she's so
yeah.
happy playing her music again, and that's just her way of reconnecting to herself and doing something for herself.
Mm,
But reconnecting to your identity and your purpose can look so different for so many of us, because we are obviously multifaceted human beings, and what we need to thrive is completely different from one person to the next. But for me, I would really look at what are your core values,
mm,
going back to what's important to you. what is it that you need to thrive? What do you
Yeah.
want to prioritize? What do you need to let go of in order to be the most vibrant version of yourself? I don't really gel with the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
It's almost reductive to the person that you are today. So the most vibrant version of yourself, and just really getting those strands in order, so you can really just take some time to think about what you want to prioritize, what you want
Mm.
to let go of, your core values, and what it is that you need to thrive, and just
Mm.
getting those basics in order and starting from there. Because once you have clarity around that, you can start
Yes.
taking the most appropriate actions to bring in that alignment, that connection to self, and that grounding. And I know it sounds easy to do,
Mm.
but this personal development isn't easy. Sometimes it can be confronting, sometimes it can be gritty, sometimes it might involve kind of ending like a toxic friendship, or kind of
Mm.
facing like your financials and budgeting and consolidating debts and all that kind of stuff. But it really is important, no matter how uncomfortable or hard it may feel in the moment.
Mm.
Once you move through that and process that, you come out a much kind of stronger, more resilient, more rounded person. It's going to benefit you so much. And I think as mums, it can be quite hard to find the time to ask yourself these questions and answer those
Yes.
questions, and just
Yeah.
have the headspace. But if you can do kind of concentrate on one of those
Mm.
questions, maybe 5 minutes in the morning, or during nap time, or just some like a slither of time
Yes. Yeah.
to yourself, then you'll be feel so much better for it, and your
Yeah.
head will feel clearer. You'll have more mental clarity.
Yeah. I really believe, you've got to carve out that moment of silence, because you can't hear sort of your own thoughts if you're on the go constantly, and it feels like you've got no choice. But in a way, you do. I think we've got to get out of that thing of, well, that's just how it is. Because I think you do have a choice. Because what I want to talk about is the sort of negative side effects of not doing the work of looking after yourself, because I think resentment is such a big thing, and that's where probably is all probably entangled with mum rage, and some sort of mental health issues as well, because sometimes you keep going for so long and you give, and then you start to think that maybe your child is the problem, and I've done so much and I put, and none of that is really the child's fault. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
then you have all this negative emotion feeling. So if you could talk a little bit about how that can show up and the dangers really of that.
I think resentment can be such a deeply rooted emotion. It can be resentment towards your partner, who just kind of
Mm.
gets ready and goes out to work, and doesn't have to deal with the day-to-day juggle, that invisible mental load of being a mum, especially if you are the default parent. That can be um very depleting. It can
Yeah.
feel like you can feel defeated by it sometimes, because there's just so much to do, and
Mm.
you drop some balls, you're juggling so many plates, and sometimes they just crash onto the
Yeah.
floor. And some days you have like you've got everything going well, and you do and those highs are great. But I think what it's about is a sense of balance and having a
Mm.
structure in place when all those plates do come crashing around you, and you're not falling into the trap of self-deprecation. I'm doing enough, I'm not good enough,
Yeah.
I'm a bad mom, um I'm damaging my kids, and all that kind of negative train of thought. Because when you are feeling vulnerable, when you are depleted of energy, that's when your inner critic raises that negative voice in your head.
Mm.
And a lot of the time, the stories that it's telling you just aren't true. And it's about kind of being rational and
Mm.
acknowledging what's true, what isn't true, and moving through that. But often when we are feeling vulnerable and low on energy, our rational brain just isn't there. um,
Mm-hmm.
and we do kind of catastrophize, and we do go down that spiral of not feeling good enough, and kind of lacking self-worth, and lacking that confidence in our own abilities, which is very common with mums. um, but yeah, I think resentment is a real hard one. And I think for me, gratitude is such a wonderful practice to tap into, and using that mindset reframe of not saying that I have to, but I
Yeah.
get to, like I get to, I don't know, I get to walk my children to school in the sunshine,
Yeah.
you know, just I
Yeah.
just not to put a plaster over the issue, but
Hmm.
just allowing you to move through those emotions with more ease and just having better control and feel more
Mm.
kind of emotionally regulated, instead of kind of going down a spiral of oh my god, I hate my life, you know, because that could be quite common, like
Yeah, yeah.
feeling too much and overwhelming.
Yeah, and I sort of, I also think that we talk a lot about mum guilt as well, don't we? Because when you start taking that time out for yourself, or you feel a bit guilty that you should be doing something else, you know. And I think a lot of it has to do with boundaries as well, especially if
Yeah,
you're somebody who struggles to enforce your boundaries. And you've got to, first of all, you mentioned about knowing what your values are. So knowing
yeah,
what your values are and what you want, and then setting those boundaries so that you don't feel overextended all the time. And that's, you know, sort of setting a boundary with yourself, even, you know, saying, you know what, I'm not going to stay up till 1 a.m. scrolling on social media. The boundary is, I don't know, midnight or 11 p.m. or,
yeah,
you know, whatever works for you. And setting boundaries with those around you, you know, family members, your partner,
mhm,
and your children. You know, it's okay to say, mummy needs 10 minutes in the bathroom. You'll have to just wait for a little bit, no matter, you know, if they don't like it or whatever. But you got to put those boundaries in place, because I think that's a core thing of resentment, is you've let your boundary, someone has trampled over your boundaries. And that's where that resentment comes from, because you feel like you've been taken advantage of somehow, or violated or something.
yeah.
So, you know, I don't know what you think about the importance of boundaries, even for children.
I think boundaries are so important. Like sometimes I go to the toilet and like my kids are trying to talk to me through the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm on the toilet. Can you just give me a few moments? I won't be
Yeah,
long.
exactly. It takes
Um,
2 minutes max.
exactly. And I quite often, because I've got 4 children, and quite
Oh,
often,
me too.
oh, have you? Oh,
Excellent.
amazing.
So
It's
I know
funny.
what you're going through. I get it. I get it.
It's a lot, but I love it. Um, but yeah, like I often quite like, because I do a lot of it by myself whilst my husband's working, and I often find myself saying, "There's one of me, and there's only 4 of you. You're gonna have to be a little bit patient, and
Yeah.
I'll take my time." Or kind of reminding myself. I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm saying it to my children or myself.
Absolutely. But it's so true, because it's important that they know that you are a person of yourself in
Yes,
your own way, not just somebody who's at their own sort of beck and call. So
yeah.
so you mentioned your 4 kids, and I'd love to know, was there a journey for you in terms of coming to this, you know, place of reclaiming yourself and your identity?
Yeah, definitely. I think particularly with when I had my second child. So when I was pregnant with her, I was doing my coaching certification and I set up my business
Mm,
when she was newborn, my coaching business when she was newborn. And for me, I felt that time that I was working on my business was just so empowering and
mm,
so wonderful. And I needed that. Like I often say and will admit that my business has saved my sanity on
yeah.
so many occasions. Like I'd have a bad day with the kids and I'll open up my laptop after they've gone to bed and just, I don't know, create some content, reply to emails. And
Yeah.
for me, that was such a great time to just have that detachment from my
Hmm.
children. So yeah, I mean, it was hard setting up a business with a newborn and a toddler. Don't get me wrong,
Can
but
imagine.
like I relished those moments because it was again, it was something for me. It was my time. It was something completely detached from motherhood, where I could be of
Mm,
purpose and of value in a completely different way. And I felt like me. I was doing something for myself that I loved. I love my business. I love what I do when it comes to my work, and it was great. Like I loved it, and it really helped me to stay connected to myself
mm,
in those kind of hazy newborn days. And Even
Yes.
now, juggling 4 children and all their needs and kind of the life admin that comes with them and the demands, like time in my business. I'm not saying that work is self-care. It's
Mm.
more the action of having something for myself.
Yes.
It's just so rewarding.
And just to use a different part of your brain and do something a bit more creative or
Yeah,
whatever it is, and
totally
talking to
switch it off.
peers, yeah,
Yeah.
and talking to somebody who's, not a child, basically, and having grown up conversations about the world, and you need all of it to be a well-rounded person. And I just wanted to quickly touch on support system, because they always say it takes a village, and
Yeah.
but a lot of people don't have a village at the moment. A lot of people are just parenting in isolation,
Mm-hmm.
and the importance of reaching out to people. And if you can,
Yeah.
obviously sometimes you can't, but
No.
what are some ways to overcome that part of it when you don't really have a support system? Because I think you should just pay
Yeah.
for it if you can.
Honestly, like we have a cleaner that comes every two
Mm-hmm.
weeks. And obviously, there's a hell of a lot to do when the cleaner's not around.
Yes.
But still, just having that kind of baggage just lifted from my mind, that actually I don't need to clean the house today, or I don't need to clean the bathrooms or mop the floor for a few days.
Yeah.
That's such a rewarding feeling for my mental health, and I see it as an investment in my mental health. I did feel a bit kind of shameful at first when I employed my cleaner, because it was like, oh, I should be able to do this all by
Mm.
myself. Not everyone has a cleaner and they're doing it, and this, that, and the other. But I see it as such a massive investment in my mental health. And for me, it's not something that I would be willing to let go. Like, I would prefer
Yes.
to invest in a cleaner than a gym membership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whatever works for you and your lifestyle, I say. you know
Exactly, mate. I work out at home. I'll go for a run as and when I feel that I want to. So I go for walks. So I get my movement in those ways, as
yeah.
opposed to going to the gym. So I'm kind of compromising a gym membership over a cleaner, because it is an added cost. Like, it's a luxury. Let's not,
Mm-hmm.
beat about the bush. But that's something that in my life really helps me. And putting my twins in childcare for 2 days a week,
Mm.
it means that I can be fully focused in my business, rather than kind of working around their nap times and kind of squeezing things in early morning and like I'm late at night. It's just 2 days to myself, and it's expensive. Childcare is really expensive.
Oh gosh,
To
yeah.
do childcare at the same time is just,
It's
yeah,
crazy.
let's not go there. But it's something that's important to me and works for me, and I think that just pays dividends. It makes me a better human. It makes me a better mother, partner,
Yeah.
sister, everything. But yeah, it is hard when you don't have anyone around. And I remember when we lived away from my family when my eldest was born, and we lived in Oxfordshire, so it was far away from my family. Although we moved down to Dorset, so even further away from my husband's job. It was a
Mm.
really tricky time, because in Oxfordshire, I just started putting myself kind of out there, kind of going to the baby groups and making connections and making friends who had similar age babies, and they
Yeah.
became my village. I think sometimes you just have to make your own village, and it
Yes.
can feel
Yeah.
awkward if you're an introvert. I'm an introvert as well, kind of
Mm.
putting yourself out there. But I think sometimes just having one or two people, it doesn't even have to be many people, who are in your corner and just get it, that you can
Yeah.
vent to, that get support from, is so beneficial in your motherhood journey. And then we moved down to Dorset and had to do it all over, start again from
All
scratch.
over
No
again.
one. So it was quite hard. But I got through it. Like, I think you just find your own way, and on those hard days when you don't have anyone, um, be proud of what you've achieved that day, whether it's
Yeah.
just getting through the laundry or cooking a home cooked meal, or
Mm-hmm.
and take it hour by hour. That's what I did when my twins were really young. That I just took, we just took it, broke down the day hour by hour.
Yes.
This was a good hour. That wasn't so good, but maybe the next hour will be better.
Mm.
Breaking the day rather than thinking about the whole day, because that can feel really overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is so true. Bit by bit, I always say, just take the next step, little by little, bit by bit. So just to wrap up, I would love for you to speak to that mum who is frazzled and overwhelmed and sort of on the edge. What's some main takeaways that they can take away from today's conversation, or something that they can put into practice from now, that will really start to have an impact on their daily life?
I would say that you deserve to take up space and take up time for yourself. And not because you're a mum, but because you're a human and it's a basic human right. And I think we need to recognize that we need to take care of ourselves because we're human, not because we're mums.
Yeah.
And because
Yeah.
the byproduct of that, of you taking care of yourself and recognizing your value and your worth and reminding yourself that you deserve to show up for yourself, is that your children then get the best of you because you're filling your cup back up and you can serve them with the overflow when you're not coming from a depleted state, because no one benefits from depletion. And I think that would be what I'd want people to take away from this conversation, that they deserve to look after themselves because they're human, not just because they're a mum. Whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is that you've got, do something that brings you joy and lights you up and makes you happy.
Absolutely. And so share with us how people can connect with you online, work with you, find out more about what you're doing.
Okay, so my website is drjemma.co.uk. You can find out how to work with me over there and book a free chat. If you are interested in coaching with me, you can come and follow me on Instagram, and I am at _Dr.Jemma. And I also have a podcast as well called Reclaiming Mum, which is available on all podcast platforms.
Oh, excellent. I'll have to check that out. Well, that's amazing. So thank you so much for chatting with us today. And it's been great. And thank you for all the advice. I'm really passionate about this topic. And I think it's so important for mums. We're raising the next generation. We can't be living in overwhelmed survival mode. That's not doing anything for us and our children. So, it's great work that you're doing. And thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.